Hi, I'm Stephen Ham from Archery Supplies. Today I'm holding a PSE bow and I want to talk about was PSE going broke when it was sold. So I was listening to a podcast the other day and the presenter suggested that PSE was going broke before it was sold to the new ownership group. And this got me thinking, maybe he knows something I don't know. So, or maybe it was just thinking, maybe he's right, I don't know, right? So I was like thinking about this. So I thought I'll do a video about it. So I want to go back onto my history with PSE. So if you've heard this before, I'm sorry, but I've been dealing with PSE for about 24 years, maybe longer, 25 years. Okay, so during that time, before PSE was sold, I was selling PSE bows about $2,000 a year, about $1 million a year purchasing from PSE. I believe at that time I was the number one dealer for PSE around the world. Okay, before that there was a dealer in Canada who was bigger than I was because he had the whole of Canada and there's 250 shops, but he went away. When I say he went away, different story about what happened to him. But then PSE started supplying all the individual shops in Canada. So basically that made me bigger. Okay, right. So PSE getting sold. I want to talk a bit about that. So the history of it, PSE, I'm going to say Pete Shepley. So sets it up as a young engineer and then develops it. Okay, and it gets up to a stage where Pete's 70 plus years old. Okay, so in that process of this thing, PSE went through a whole lot of iterations. And when I say a whole lot of iterations, they brought the factory where they're at now, which used to be a Microsoft facility or IBM facility. Back in the day, they had an indoor shooting range in there. They used to have a shop in there. They had a cafe in there. Now, the cafe was run by one of the sons. And for a period, Pete stepped away from the company and let his son, Jonathan, be CEO of the company. Now, then Pete came back in and ran it. And then Jonathan had a job, I think, of marketing for PSE. And Pete and Jonathan would go on to run their anodizing plant for anodizing the bows. This is the best of my knowledge. And just before PSE was sold, Peter gave the CEO role to the head engineer, whose name was David. Now I know David because David worked at PSE as a young engineer and worked his way through, and I'm going to say I spent a fair bit of time with David. So I got on well with him. I liked David. Apparently, this is rumor has it, there was some friction between David and Jonathan. Okay? And that's perfectly normal to do with businesses and different people having different ideas, because that's what it is. It's a person to say, this is the way things should be, and the other person goes, no, it should be this way. Perfectly normal. It happens every day in my shop. So if I look at my wall or what stock I buy, different people have different views on what I should be doing and how I should be doing things in the shop. And if you let this stuff get to you, well, anyway. So David was CEO of PSE, and this is my understanding, around the time of the sale. He may not have been, he may have been replaced. Okay? But when David came in, this is my recollection of it, David wanted to have his mark on PSE. And one of David's marks was he started giving away lots of stuff. I mean, Peter had always been very, I'm going to say, stingy about giving away stuff. And when I say that, I'm talking 300 bows a year. And he did sponsor people. He actually had some shooters on a salary. But he was, I'm going to say, frugal with money, if that's fair. So there wasn't a lot of money spent on the look of the PSE factory, probably a bit like myself here. but he would buy expensive machines to build bows. Okay, so God, there was some expensive machines in there, right? He purchased expensive machines to build strings by computer. So strings would just get made by these computers. Like amazing stuff, right? But when David came in, from my perspective, he started giving away a lot of stuff. And I was like, well, this is a bit weird because, like, how is that affordable? How are you making money by doing that? And I thought that was an interesting thing. And one of the things David wanted to do when he came in, and this is from my perspective, was he wanted to appoint some other dealers in Australia besides myself. And I wasn't that happy about that, to be honest. And I was like, well, why are you doing this? I think I'm doing a pretty good job here in Australia. And I hadn't spoken to David about this, but David knew me, and I'm going to say knew me well, and knew me since I was in my 20s. And it was all the conversations I ever had with David was always about how you grow the sales of PSE. And David would walk around the ATA show with me. So he's now CEO, but he, in our younger years, he would walk around with me to every bow manufacturer and say which bow he sells and which one's comparable to PSE. So which ones do we need to target better than we're doing as far as price point and as far as, you know, features on the bow. What features do we need to make a bow more competitive? And he would walk around with me to every manufacturer and we would discuss this. All right. So this is the thing with David, and he took it. If I said, look, this bow's better for these reasons, he was fine with that. There was no issues, and often you then see changes, right? But then when David became CEO, I never actually spoke to David, okay? So I actually asked PSE before they sold, if they were selling, because there was plenty of rumours about the sale. But at that stage, when PSE was being sold, I said I was selling $1 million a year of stock, and boxes of PSE bows were coming into my store every single week. There was no delays with PSE. It was like they were pumping out. And I went to the PSE factory, and there's a conveyor line of bows coming down this conveyor belt. It's a big conveyor belt. It's amazing. All these boxes, they had your name on it, who the bow's for, and all the bits that's required, and it was all in this box. And about 1 in 10 bows had my name on it. And most people in the PSE factory knew me and knew my name, which was completely amazing to me. And because it's like they've never met me, but they knew who I was, right? So, and maybe it's because every bow had a label on it to say who it was for. Anyway, so my feeling is that when before PSE was sold, they changed CEOs. Now, I'm not sure how that happened because some stuff was all happening at the same time, and I'm going to talk about that. So my sales manager at the time was Jay Saylor, and I'd been with him for 20 plus years. And we had a fantastic relationship, and I'm going to say it was a very, very much a friendship. Like literally, I talked to him every single day, Christmas Day, every single day he was available 7 days a week and would respond to me within 2 hours. Amazing work ethic, and couldn't rate it highly. And I would always let Pete Shepley know that this guy is amazing, right? Always, every Christmas I'd say, this guy is amazing. He does amazing work, and this is what's pumping your business, right? Anyway, in the sale of PSE, David disappeared, and they replaced him with a new guy. I think his name, and he's going to hate me, but I've never spoken to him, is Lonnie Walkman. I don't know where Lonnie came from. I've never met him. I've never seen him. I've never spoken to him. So My understanding is he worked in another part of PSE, but certainly he hadn't been there for a long time because I've never met him, right? So, and he might say I've been there forever. I've never met him. I don't recall him. I may have met him. I don't believe I've ever met him, right? So David went and Lonnie was replaced, right, as CEO, which they never made it kind of formal. And then my sales rep was replaced with a sales rep from Hoyt. And I'm like, oh, this is great for me because Hoyt don't like me, right? I don't know why. Well, people would say why, but it's like, I'm just here trying to sell bows. I'm trying to grow the sport, and Hoyt's always been like, stuff you. And I'm like, look, I'm a guy who sells bows, and I get a whole bunch of people shooting. I don't know why you wouldn't like me. Anyway, Hoyt have always had a thing where they'll never supply me, and I'm like, okay. So getting a Hoyt guy in, I was like, well, what he's going to do, he's going to go to all his Hoyt dealers and go, you can have PSE. So I'm like, that's going to be a big killer for PSE in Australia, right? Because what the Hoyt dealers will do is they'll discount PSE and basically run me out of town because I won't be able to compete because they'll be selling Hoyts and they'll just be discounting PSEs, and I'm buggered. Right? So that was my concern of this guy coming in. And I'm like, and he was like, no, I really like the work you do. You're very positive and all this. However, we need to look at other options for our future. And I'm like, okay, right. Now I'm going to say there are Hoyt dealers in Australia, and I'm going to say there's 6 of them, however many there are. There's only a small number. But if you're not a Hoyt dealer, then you tended to be a PSE dealer, and you're buying PSE from me. So I had around 30 stores in Australia I was selling PSEs to. And they competed against the Hoyt stores. So I was like, you're a Hoyt dealer or you're a PSE dealer. That's the way it pretty much was in Australia. So I'm like, look, this is a really bad idea. But anyway, he disappeared. Like, I don't know where he went. They moved him to the side. He was there for, I'm going to guess, 6 weeks. 2 months. And they moved him to somewhere else, and I don't know if he's still working there today. I don't even recall his name. It was so quick. And I'm like, there goes my business. But I don't think he developed any of the PS. I don't think he developed any of the Hoyt dealers into PSE dealers. I don't think he did. So then I got another sales guy in, and he was apparently from another part of PSE, and it was the same sort of deal, and I was like, I don't really know what's going on here with the sale of it. I don't know whose PSE has been sold to. I don't really know what's happening, and there was a price hike. So there was a price hike. All my PSE prices just jumped, right? They jumped about 20%. And then I'm like, well, my prices have jumped, but internationally I can see the prices of PSE in Europe, and it doesn't match up with what I'm paying, right? So I think the price jump happened with the Hoyt guy, right? I'm pretty sure it was the Hoyt guy increased my prices on PSE. And I'm like, well, this makes it really tough for me because now it's cheaper to buy a PSE in Europe than to buy off me, and I can't compete, and I'm running on tight margins as it is. So, and then the new sales rep came in, and I said, well, I'm having troubles. Like there was guys discounting PSEs for prices I couldn't even match them for. So I'm like, well, I couldn't even compete. Like I couldn't buy the bows at the price other shops were selling them for. So I was like, well, either they're idiots, highly likely, and I'm not being rude, highly likely you're an idiot. And I'll probably need to explain why they're idiots. Or you've got a different pricing from them to me. Something is wrong. And I would give them all the numbers and all the maths in a spreadsheet to show why I can't buy bows at these prices and why none of this makes sense. Because I'm trying to work out what's going on here, right? This is all in the sale of PSE, right? But at this stage, bows are flowing in, right? So, but my problem is if I buy a bow from PSE, there was people selling the bows for less than I could pay it for. So I'm like, well, I can't keep buying bows. Even though I've got, these are my PSEs behind me, that's why I'm standing here. Even while these racks are all filled with PSEs, it's like I can't buy them because other people are selling them for less than I can pay for them. And I'm like, are they just trying to run me out of business, or is something's going on? And the sales rep was basically I'm going to say he's probably, from his perspective, he was probably exhausted with me complaining. He's like, no, your pricing's fine. There's nothing to talk about. And I'm like, but here's the pricing in Europe and here's the pricing in Australia. None of this makes sense. I can share you other bows and their pricing and it all makes sense, but none of this makes sense. So that was it. That was it. That was the sale of PSE. PSE got sold to this new guy, to this new company. Pete left, and I messaged Jonathan. I'm like, what's going on? I don't understand. It's like, I don't understand what's going on. And he said, talk to Lonnie. I had a heart attack around the same time. Whether it's all stress related or what, I don't know. But anyway, that was a massive, for me, I was like, I don't know why this is going on. And PSE said to me, well, maybe we should cut you as a dealer. So maybe we should just, maybe our relationship is finished. Right? And I'm like, well, I'd prefer that not to be the case. I don't even know that I've done anything wrong, because I'm just like, look, I can't buy a bow for what these people are selling them for. It makes no sense to me. Could you please look at it? And I was like, anyway. So then I just stopped complaining, right? Because they were like, we're going to drop you as a dealer because you complain too much. And I'm going to say for 20 odd years, I had a reputation at PSE. I was the easiest customer to deal with, right? Because I don't want to be a hard customer to deal with. I want to be an easy customer to deal with, because then when I need something, they look after me. I'm going to say PSE has always looked after me. Even now, if I get warranty issues, they still look after me. Okay. So what happened with the pricing and what happened with the thing? So I'm going to say part of it was that the guys they were selling PSE to were idiots. And no disrespect to the people I'm talking to, and I sound disrespectful. I'll explain what I mean. So, to ship this bow in from PSE, it costs, let's say, $150 per bow, regardless of what the bow is, because it's a cubic size. It flies in. So let's say it's $150 a bow. It may be $120 a bow. It may be $200 a bow. I allow $100 a bow. Okay, it's a little bit more expensive now because of freight costs have gone up and stuff, right? So what I think they were doing was they were basing it on a percentage of the shipment. So for a cheaper bow like a PSE Stinger, they were going, what's 10% to bring a bow in. So a PSE Stinger costs $20 to bring in a PSE Stinger, and to bring in a Carbon Air is $250. That's what I think they were doing, because their pricing on their carbon bows was higher than me, and their pricing on their cheap end bows was really, really cheap. Right? But it means I couldn't even bring the cheaper bows in by sea anymore, because their pricing was so low I couldn't even match it. Right? So in the past I used to bring in a whole bunch of bows by sea from PSE, container load. Sometimes a 40-foot container which was empty. But I bring them in by containers, reduce the cost so you can pass the saving on to customers and on to the shops, right? Anyway, I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't do it. So I was like, well, I'll just wait this one out and see if these shops go broke. Well, I did. I waited it out. It's been 2 years, 3 years. They basically went broke. So there is no one stocking PSE in Australia. Now there are people who've got PSE on their websites, but there's no one who's got stock in stock, right? There's a handful of bows, right? In Australia, the other shops which PSE is supplying now. You can count them. Before that, we had, like, I've got a fair few PSEs there on the racks. That's all PSEs, right? That is less than a quarter of what I used to stock. All right, so PSE used to make up 90% of my sales. The sales have dropped away, I'm going to say 90%. Like, I still sell a fair few PSEs, but I don't sell what I used to sell. It's dropped away so much, and we can go through the list of reasons why PSE has dropped away, but this video is like, was PSE going broke? So going back to that, I think the costs of running an archery manufacturing business, making bows, is high. PSE employ 300 staff. They've got all the costs of the fabrics, and they offer a lifetime warranty. So when people break their bows through dry firing, derailing, where they pull it, and when they grip the bow like that, and they pull it back, and the string pops off, and they go, oh, my cams are broken, PSE wear that cost. They don't need to, but they do. When people overpress the limbs, and the little splinters occur in the limbs, compression cracks, PSE wear that cost. And I'm like, this must be killing you. And I spoke to David about this. I was like, David, this must be killing you. So the former CEO, just make the limbs with less compression on them, like this, and then they won't splinter in here. So this limb doesn't splinter. I've never had one of these limbs splinter, never, because they're not under as much tension as the old X-Force limbs. I've never had any of these limbs fail. He's like, oh no, it's fine. We get more performance out of them for the number of problems we have. It's not an issue because we get more performance and more speed, and that's what people want. Okay. So then Pete signed on John Dudley. That would have cost money. And then I questioned, for the amount of money which they were paying out for John Dudley, whether that accounted for the amount of sales which John was making for them. It's a question. So from my perspective, Pete's getting old and he's wanting to retire. He's wanting to take time off and holiday, right? And I'm going to guess that they would have had a family conversation. The daughter is a hairdresser, the other son's a chef, and Jonathan was the logical one to come into PSE. Now there's some grandkids as well, but they were younger. So my gut feeling is Pete thought, look, let's just sell it and take the money, and then people can go on their own way. So Jonathan set up an advertising agency after the sale of PSE, so I'm guessing that Pete helped him out to set up the advertising agency. And I'm going to say that the price PSE would have sold for, I don't know how much it is, but I think the land I think you can look it up on a website, the land sold for $750,000. And then it's how much the PSE factory was sold for. And there was lots of rumours that it was John Bomar or whatever his name is, and John Dudley. I'm like, these people can't afford to buy PSE. They're not wealthy enough, right? And then I think about it. Well, for the price of a house in California, you can buy PSE. And that's how wrong the world is today. So a company that's been set up for 50 years or whatever, 50 years, that employs 300 people is worth less than a house in California. It's probably worth less than my sister's house. Does that make any sense? That this guy who's worked, obviously a smart guy, Pete, that he's worked his whole life and, being efficient, trying to cut costs, trying to make these things at the lowest price he can, because that was always his aim. And when I say lowest price he can, he was always price sensitive, that these bows were affordable. The results of that is that it's worth less than a house. So you could just buy a house and the house will go up in value more than having a company. That's one of the issues I have with the whole of the way the economy is today. So my feeling is, I don't believe PSE was going broke when it was sold. I believe Pete was just getting old, and that Jonathan had been there and run it before, and Jonathan's background is marketing, so he would be better to have a marketing business, which is what he's got. I think that was the feeling for it. I have had conversations with people about this, and people. So I don't believe PSE was going broke. I think the new ownership that came in thought, well, this is a cool thing, and I'm going to guess they were into archery and into hunting, and thought, well, this is going to be a cool thing. And they probably get into it, and the impact of an owner on a business, on the lights of a Pete Shepley on a business, just to make things go nicely, I think you're probably underestimated. Now, this video may cause me to lose PSE, because the Lonnie Walkman might go, well, Stephen, we're just getting rid of you, right? I run that risk every time I make a video. And I don't think I'm having a go at Lonnie, and he may think I am having a go at him. I'm not. I'm just saying, I don't think PSE was going broke at the time PSE sold. I think as you become older, you think, what's going to happen to your business? Like when I had my heart attack, my family was like, what's going to happen to your business, to all this stuff? I'm like, I'm dead, I don't care. And they're like, well, your son doesn't want it. He doesn't want any of this. He doesn't want anything to do with it. So who's going to manage it? What's going to happen? And I think that's what was probably going through Pete's mind. Who's going to run it? So he put people in place. He put, John Dudley there to have influence. He had, I'm going to say, I think PSE, when PSE was sold, was probably at its biggest, strongest it had ever been in the time I had been at PSE. So the 20 so many years, it was at its strongest. And I think as the owners of PSE, you've got to say, well, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? Where is our growth? Where are we heading? Leadership is what I'm talking about. And I know Pete tried lots of stuff, having an archery shop, a shooting range. He used to have dealer schools come in to teach you how to shoot bows, to teach you the technical bits about their bows and working on bows, to get more shops set up. There's a dealer school. This is all stuff Pete had. At one stage he had a phone help desk, so you can ring up with your questions, and you pay so much a minute to talk to someone who knows stuff about bows. All cool stuff to try out. I'm going to say probably all of it failed for one reason or another. But this innovation came from the owner. It came from Pete going, How can I push sales more? How can I grow my brand more? You know, he brings in a Russian Olympic archery coach and he works in the PSE factory as a coach to the top female recurve archer in America. So she lives at PSE with the top Russian archery. Like amazing stuff. That's stuff that you can see Pete would do because he's passionate about the sport, passionate about archery. And I suppose that passion is what you're wanting from your company. So my summary, I don't think PSE was going broke, and it may have been, but I don't think it was. I've been to Pete's house. He's got a big ranch. I've had dinner with Pete. They appear to have plenty of money. They drive nice cars. I would find it very, very weird that changed in the last 2 years. I haven't seen them. Obviously, COVID created lots of issues with supplies. That was just across the industry. But I don't believe PSE was going broke. That's my summary of it. Anyway, I suppose we'll see how PSE take this and if I get cut. Anyway. I've got to a point where I don't really care these days, so Lonnie, if you want to cut me, you can cut me. I don't really care. I make plenty of money, and I think I do good with PSE. I think I did well with sales. So, yeah, I'll leave it there. I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies. Thanks for watching. Bye.